Welcome to Waking the Why, a podcast about uncovering the purpose behind life's crucible moments. Each episode, you'll hear from real people who turn their struggles into strength and their stories into light. If you're searching for meaning, walking through something hard, or just love stories that stir the soul, you're in the right place. Hello, friends, and welcome to Waking the Why, where we discover the purpose behind life's crucible moments. My name is Stacee Pedersen, and today we have Holly Porter again. I'm so excited, you guys, that she's here. It's been a year since we recorded your episodes, and a year since I've done the podcast, and it's been an amazing time. And I'm just grateful that Holly has agreed and pushed me a little to share my story today. And so Holly is going to interview me. How fun is that? So I'm turning it over to you.
Okay, well, hopefully everyone will be patient with me as I do this. It's my first time being on this side of the interview, so I'll do my best. Let's start with a little bit of your story, and let's have you tell everyone kind of your journey a little bit.
Okay. Well, it's interesting, everyone. I think one thing you have to know about me is I'm a person that's driven by purpose, and I can go back to when I was a little girl. I'm almost obsessive about it a little bit, constantly worried if I'm doing the right thing, if I'm doing what God wants me to do. And throughout my entire life, that's the lens at which I see the world. And I can go back to an experience I had on my mission. I served in New York City, and I was called Spanish speaking.
Oh, fun.
I would say it was fun. Actually, I loved the people.
Oh, good.
Absolutely loved the people. The language I struggled with. And I had foreign language, Spanish, all through high school and junior high. And I did really good. But I held myself back in speaking the language. I'm a really independent person. I think I can do everything on my own. And I know for a fact that if God hadn't called me to Spanish speaking, I wouldn't have learned what I needed to learn, because I loved the gospel. I loved the happiness it brought into my life, and I could talk about it. Like, that has never been a problem for me. In another language, when you can't express what you want to express, it's probably the first time in my life that I really remember being drawn to my knees and begging for help. And realizing, like, oh, well, I actually can't do this on my own. The sad thing is, I could go back and look at all of the things that I've experienced in my life, and I'm being taught that same lesson over and over. You would think I would learn, but you would think I would learn. I think God's like, oh my gosh, Stacee, here we go again. We're going to teach you this, right? And so my mission experience really shaped my relationship with Jesus Christ, and really understanding that partnership with him. Since that time, though, I still have had to learn what it means to be independent versus interdependent, and how to still rely on God. And I have an issue with really recognizing when God's talking to me. And it's so funny, because I'll say, when I have the same repeated thought, like, that's when I need to pause and listen. But sometimes it takes me a really long time to realize I'm having the same repeated thought. So back in 2016, I started my business. I own an HR outsourcing business consulting company. But for 3 years prior to that, I kept having the prompting and the nudge, and I would ignore it. I didn't realize that it was that frequent. You go back in my journal and you can see it. But I was ignoring it because I didn't know how to start a company. I didn't know what to do, and it was always like what I can do, what I can't do. And again, it's another experience. There's so many experiences in that first 4 years of my company where God taught me so many powerful things. One of which is, you're not meant to do this alone, right? You're meant to do it. I was meant to do it with him and all the other people surrounding me.
And I can see that just in life in general, that God, that's how he works. It's with us, not against us or solo or anything like that. So yeah, I love that. So I'm going to touch on another trial that I know you've gone through. So I hope that's okay, because I want your viewers to kind of hear your side of this trial.
Yeah.
You dealt with some infertility
Yeah.
in your life.
Yeah.
So tell us kind of that relationship with your Heavenly Father and the faith that you had to have as you learned to work with Him and not solo through that.
You know, the reason why I immediately chuckled is because I immediately heard my husband saying, yeah, she forced me to have kids. You know, 'cause he always said that. You forced me to have kids, you forced me to buy a house. And, you know, I'm like, who can really force anybody? But so I was dating my husband. We were dating before both of us went on our missions. And, you know, back then, sisters didn't go until you were 21. So when I got home at the age of 22 and a half, and I got married 2 weeks before my 23rd birthday, I felt like I was old, right? A little bit older. And I'm like...
Which is funny because kids in this day and age don't even consider that old anymore.
No, they don't. But back then I'm like old. And I also I had always heard that if you have babies after the age of 30, it's really hard to get back in shape. So in my mind, you know, I'm a person that likes to plan and execute the plan. And so I'm like, okay, all these babies have to come by 30. And so you know, we weren't necessarily like trying in the very, very beginning, but I wasn't getting pregnant. And it was just a weird, I don't know, I think you just kind of think like, oh, you're just going to get pregnant and that's how it goes. And that wasn't my experience. And so I remember going to the doctor and we were looking at my history of my cycles and everything else. And she's just like, you don't ovulate and you need some fertility drugs to help you. And I'm like, oh my gosh, okay. And I remember I went home and told Cody and he's like, so we're actually really doing this? Like, yes, I have the drugs. Here we go. I'm grateful for the people that have been in my life, medical professionals that kind of guide you in those times. And I think back, Michelle Knowles was my midwife, and I am so grateful for her bedside manner in helping me through that time because, you know, the first month you take the fertility drug and you think it's going to work. Mm-hmm. It's going to work. Mm-hmm. And then it doesn't, right? So you go the next month and you take it and it doesn't work. And you start like questioning and doubting yourself of like, am I doing something wrong? What's happening, right? And similar to the questioning that I had on my mission, I started questioning of like, well, if I'm supposed to have kids, why is it so hard? If I'm supposed to speak Spanish and teach people, why can't I speak the language, right? So again, I was having those kinds of thoughts. And I'm grateful that God doesn't answer my prayers immediately, because I found in that waiting period how much closer I grow to Him. And so I've found myself, again, on my knees, just begging for understanding and just help me emotionally get through it, right? And we got pregnant with Dax, and it took about 5 or 6 months. Definitely there are others that had a much more difficult time than I did. And that emotion is so hard, that roller coaster up and down. When we decided it was time for a second, I thought, oh, here we go. And literally we got pregnant right away. I was like, oh, wow.
Oh, wow.
Okay, this is weird, right? And then for the third one, again, couldn't get pregnant and had to go through the same emotional roller coaster. And it is super hard. And it's only through the relationship with my Heavenly Father that I feel like I can handle those kinds of things now. I will say, I don't always handle it gracefully or perfectly.
So you're human like the rest of us.
Right. It's true. But yeah, it was a difficult time, and it's really taught me to have some empathy for the struggles that others have, right? And to realize like there's a lot going on, and when you're pumping your body through with extra hormones, it's like it just takes it to a whole another level as well. And so
yeah, and I wanted to touch on that. I have a sister that's struggling right now.
Is she?
It just pulls on my heartstrings. So I'm just like, I want you to share a little bit to help those who are going through that right now, so they can find hope, so they can find faith, and they can use the Lord as a partner in this and turn to Him and know that He's there to help them no matter what that journey is supposed to look like for them, because it looks different for everybody.
It does. And I'm so grateful for the experience that I had in the way in which God showed up in my life. I realize that it won't be the same for everyone. And so I do want to acknowledge that there are others that don't get that prayer answered for them. And that time is so hard. And I've just learned through life that I've learned to stop asking why me, why. Not that it doesn't ever pop in my mind. But I've learned to quickly switch it to, well, what can I learn from this? And how can I take what I've learned and help other people? So.
Yeah, I love that. And I want you to share, if it's okay, some other trials that you've gone through where when you face those moments where you're just like turning to God and just saying, why? Like, I don't get it. Like all the things that you sometimes yell at God about, because I've been in those moments where you're just like, Heavenly Father, this shouldn't be working out this way. I'm doing everything I can to follow you, to choose the right, to do what you want me to do. And I feel like I'm getting punished for it. Yeah. So I want you to talk about some of those moments in your life when you've had those moments and the faith that you had to get through those moments.
Yeah. Well, one I'll start with is, as I mentioned before, for 3 years I felt the impression to start a company. And I was in a great role. I was working at Zion's Bancorp. I was in their operational. I was a VP of HR. Things were great.
Yeah.
Things were great. I did not need a change, right? But I couldn't ignore the nudge any longer. And so I'm a person driven by purpose. If God says you're going to do this, I'm like, okay, I'm going to do this. When I finally figured out, okay, I'm going to do this. So then, honestly, then I expect it to happen. But it wasn't happening in the way that I needed it to. So, we start this company, and we were growing slowly, but we weren't growing quick enough to cover the amount of expenses that were coming in. And it was so hard. That first 4 years, it was so hard. And what's interesting about it is it wasn't just the business that was hard. There were so many elements of life experience that happened at the same time. And during that time, I'm like, I don't know if I can handle any more of this, right? But every single day I showed up and grinded, doing the work. And Sarah Newman still works with me today, and her and I remember it's winter. It's a major Utah storm that's happening outside, and it's like midnight, and her and I are still at the office processing quarterly tax returns, looking at each other like, what in the world are we doing? Why are we doing this, right? And I have no problem grinding. I really don't. But there were so many times where I'm like, why? If this is what you want me to do, and this is a way I can serve and help other people, why is it so hard? Why? Like, I'm doing everything that I can, right? Well, 2.5 years into it, I realized like, this isn't going to work. And I remember coming home to Cody, and I'm sobbing. And I said to him, I need someone to come into my life right now. I have no idea what to do. Like, I need them right now. Well, 2 weeks previously, I had reached out to a friend of mine, and for one of my clients needs some compensation guidance. And so I reached out to my friend and said, hey, do you know anybody that does these executive comp programs? I need to have some conversations. And so he gave me a name of a gentleman named Jim, and he's like, reach out to him. So I did, and 2 weeks prior, I had scheduled a meeting with this man down in Bountiful. And I wake up the morning after sobbing all night, thinking, the last thing I want to do right now is go to this lunch and talk to this guy I don't even know. Like, I don't want to do this. But something propelled me out of bed. Get ready, show up. This is what you do. It's hard, but you still just show up. And I'm sitting in the parking lot of El Matador in Bountiful, crying. And I got to get myself put together because I'm meeting this man I don't even know. And next to me in this car is this man. I don't know him, you know, and we keep kind of looking at each other, and I'm sitting there sobbing, trying to get myself put together. Well, that gentleman goes in, and I was there early. So I kind of get myself put together, and I walk in, and the gentleman in the car is Jim that I'm meeting.
Oh, wow.
So we go sit down, and he's like, so you have some questions on compensation? And I'm like, yeah. He's like, well, before we go there, he's like, let me just ask you some questions about you. And that lunch, I think it was about almost 3 hours long. We did not talk about comp 1 minute. And I have no doubt that God sent him to me, because the next 2 months I would not have been able to get through without him. He walked me through, I mean, basically we were bankrupt. And he walked me through conversations that I needed to have with business partner, with investors. He walked me through just giving me some strength and confidence in doing that. And there were so many miracles throughout that whole process that I just, sometimes I can't even fathom it. But at that moment, it wasn't even at that moment. It was 2 weeks before God knew she's going to need this guy. She is going to need him in her life. And Jim is one of my dearest friends to this day, 8 years later, and we still reach out and talk to one another. And I'm so grateful that Momentum, my company, we do our best to serve other people. I always say we're here to help people and businesses grow. That's what we do, and I love every minute of that growth. For me personally, it was a much more spiritual journey than anything of this earth. Like, so spiritual. Grateful for it.
I love that story. I also love the part where you said that when you first started, it was 2.5 years. It didn't happen right away.
Oh.
So how did you keep going forward with faith for 2.5 years?
So there's a quote, Elder Holland, I'm not going to quote it correctly, but in one of his talks, he basically said, if what you've prayed before and got an answer that you needed to do something, it's still right today. Like, that answer doesn't change, right? And I had happened to come across that quote within the first year, and I printed it out and put it right on my computer, and every day I just was like, I know God is asking me to do this. I don't know how it's going to end up. And maybe that's not the point. And I had to become okay with that. Like, I'm a planner. I hate the unknown. I'm a bit of a control freak, I'll admit it. And so what I do is I put plans in place that then I can execute to. And I've had to learn at times to not be so rigid in my plans, and realize and learning to let go. If there's one thing that I've learned in the last 10.5 years is learning to let go and be still. I definitely haven't mastered it. I'm still working on that for sure, but yeah.
Well, every time you share, it's amazing. So I'm just going to keep picking your brain because the testimony that you're actually sharing is helping me with everybody I'm sure is listening is going through their own personal hard, and so it's everyone goes through it at different times and different levels. So go ahead.
Can I share another
Yeah,
story?
yeah,
real
yeah.
quick? This just popped in my mind.
Yeah.
So during the first few years, I'm like, I need some help. And so my church, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, has the self-reliance program, right? Mm-hmm. And one of them is, I can't remember the exact phrase of it, but it's about how do you start a business, right? And I'm like, I'm going to go take that. It was during the time when it first was kind of rolled out. I'm like, I'm going to go do that. And so every week I would go to class, and there was a workbook, and there was about 10 of us around the table, and we were working on our businesses together. And there were always these times where in the workbook you needed to ponder and write about like what you can do to help move your business forward, right? And part of this approach to business was there's the spiritual side focusing on connection to God, and then there's practical. Okay, like now what am I going to do to increase my sales, right? So the pondering, it's like, okay, well, what am I going to do to increase my sales? So I was really intentional. I thought before this class that I really knew what it meant to search, ponder, and pray, but this class really, really taught me what pondering means, and learning to just quiet my mind. I would get so mad because not once in that course did I get the impression of what I needed to do to help the business. It was go to the temple more often.
Oh, wow.
Be nicer to your husband. And I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. You gotta be kidding me. But the one thing that I realized is that we are whole human beings. That I'm not Stacee at work and Stacee at church and Stacee at home. I'm Stacee. And that what impacts one aspect of my life influences all of the others. And so I just felt God through that whole time nudging me to draw closer to what really matters. And my cousin, Carrie Jo at the time, she was attending the temple every Tuesday. And she's like, just come to the temple with me. I'm like, what time do you go? 11 a.m. I'm like, are you kidding? That's like right in the middle of a work day. There's no way in the world. There's no way I can do that. And she's like, okay. And I'm like, well, maybe I'll try. And I got the impression that following week in class to go to the temple more often. And so I did, Tuesdays at 11. And I remember praying and telling God, I have no idea how this is going to work. Like, this is right in the middle of daytime. And it was amazing. It worked, and it really felt like my time expanded. And I think, again, God's just like, Stacee, I'm going to help you focus on what really matters, and you'll see that everything else gets taken care of. Again, might not be the exact plan I had in mind, but it will all work out.
Thank you for listening. The conversation continues next week. You won't want to miss it.